Welcome to Paddling Adventures Radio. I'm Sean Rowley, and with me is Derek Spesh.
Hello.
How's it going, Derek?
Fantastic.
What a great film festival.
It was amazing.
More fun films. Yeah, every year. There just seems to be different films. And
sponsored by Sail.
Yeah.
Some nice door prizes.
Yeah.
Lots of nice people.
Yep.
Good food.
Always good food.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, drums and flats. Oh, Awesome. Awesome. And those TVs.
I know. And so I like someday I just got to go back there and watch a baseball game or hockey game or something.
Right?
All those screens.
Yeah. MMA.
Yep.
I'm not into it, but, you know.
Yeah.
Episode 2 of our Quiet Adventures Symposium series. 2 of 3. So, we've talked about paddling in Antarctica.
Yes.
And what it would take. And it's expensive. And the skills you'd need required. And the things you could see while you were down there. Mm-hmm. And there comes a point where I would just love to go.
Yeah. And now we know 2 people that do this.
Actually, 3 people that do this.
Well, there's
Marissa.
Who's Marissa?
See Sawyer Run?
Oh, yes. Oh, really? Didn't know that. Just thought they did see Sawyer Run stuff.
No, she was down there doing that. Dimpna Hayes. And I think it's Robert. Yeah. And then now Michael Gray of Uncommon Adventures. Yeah. So I follow Michael on Instagram and Facebook and stuff like that. I see some of his photos and stuff, and he paddles like everywhere, and kayaks and that, and some of the stuff that you see is it's like wow, right? So actually, his booth was just down from us.
Yes.
So I chit-chatted with him. Say, hey, buddy pal, why don't you come on over if you have a couple seconds? I'd love to talk to you about paddling in Antarctica. So he came over. Yeah. And we had a little chit-chat. I mean, they paddle in more places. But the way they do things was pretty neat, I think. I won't ruin it yet. We'll talk about it afterwards. Yeah. But, I wanted to hear, about paddling in Antarctica, what it's like, what you can expect, and things like that. So I had a chit chat with Michael. It was a nice long one too, and got a lot of good information from him. So we'll see, maybe one day.
Yep,
one day we'll be down there paddling in Antarctica.
It'll be fascinating. It's not,
I'm gonna steal me a penguin.
It's a little expensive, but.
If you had your choice, would you take home a seal or a penguin?
What am I doing with them?
Taking them home.
I'd have to build some giant aquarium.
No, it doesn't matter.
If
you're rich enough to smuggle a seal or a penguin home, you're not going to really care.
Yeah. But am I taking them home for food or for pet?
I wasn't being specific. No, as a pet.
I would want a penguin.
A penguin to go with my platypus and ostrich.
Exactly. My little petting zoo. My exotic petting zoo.
Yeah, it's just certain animals.
Yeah. What would you call him? My penguin would be named Bob.
Bob the penguin.
Kevin
the penguin.
Yeah.
Hello, Kevin. Anyway, here is the interview I had with Michael Gray from Uncommon Adventures about Antarctica and a couple other places, too. All right, our first guest at the Quiet Adventures Symposium this year is Michael Gray from Uncommon Adventures. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you.
So you've done, and this has been an interest to us a lot, paddled in Antarctica.
I have.
And you just do the kayaking, of course. But I don't think there's going to be very many canoes down there.
No, occasional paddle boards. Right. I was out on a paddleboard one day when we had a group of orcas come by, and we decided that was a bad idea.
I don't know, because you can sort of jump out and swim faster, right?
It looked like a seal from the bottom. I felt like food. Yeah. Well, and that's,
we did a show a little while ago. They're talking about there's different designs to avoid sharks and orcas and stuff like that.
Yeah, they don't build Yum Yum Yellow anymore.
There you go. So why do you like to paddle down there?
Well, for some reason, years ago I used to run winter programs in the Caribbean.
Right.
You know, I live in the Midwest. We have winter here, right? And so our paddling season is shortened by winter. And I used to go do trips in the Caribbean all winter long. Seemed like a great idea. But then one day I think I was shoveling snow and bumped my head or something, and I thought, I want to go to Antarctica for the winter. And so I ended up kind of working through different friends, a friend that ran our Olympic paddling team that was working on a ship down there, and he recommended me to an Australian company as a potential guide, and they put me on the guide rota that they had, and that was 5 or 6 years ago, and since then I've been working for a bunch of Australians in the Antarctic winter, or actually Antarctic summer,
right,
in our winter down there off a ship as a kayak guide.
So basically you're on a cruise ship for, how long are you usually out for?
They wouldn't really call it a cruise ship. It's an adventure ship. Okay. It only has about 130 passengers. It's smaller. It's meant to crush through ice. I've worked on old Russian icebreakers with even less people for the same reason. We have kayaking on board, skiing, mountaineering, so it's high adventure activities that are on board. We're usually gone for 10 to 21 days.
Right. That's cool. That's a good time to be out on the water. Now is it just basically sunrise to sunset paddling?
There is no sunset. It's Antarctic
summer. That's true.
So it gets dark, it gets dim for a few minutes around 3:30 in the morning.
Right.
So we would get legally dead if we kept going as long as there was daylight. We get legally dead anyway.
Have you really tried it?
It's a thought.
Right.
We've done some night paddles, or some dim weather paddles, I should say, when they want to run a really long day. If we missed an outing somewhere, go out and paddle amongst the icebergs in the sideways blowing snow.
So, I mean, if you're booking one of these adventures with you guys, you go down, and basically it's just, okay, we're going kayaking today, we're going kayaking tomorrow. Is it all different places, or is it just one spot? And can you know, if I'm here and everybody else is just on a ship, can I go out and paddle if no one else wants to go for the day?
So it's kind of a bigger tale than that. If you want to kayak in Antarctica, it first starts with a long boat ride across the roughest water on the planet.
Right.
You have to spend 2 days barfing your way across the Drake Passage first.
Doable.
So you earn it. And then once you're down on the peninsula, you usually have 4 or 5 days of potential stops that are pre-booked ahead. Okay. There's 40 or 50 ships dancing around each other around the peninsula, trying not to be seen at one time.
Really?
You'd be surprised at how much tourism goes on there. So we work through a ship scheduler that tries to make sure that nobody's trying to use the same site at the same time. So we get to a spot where we've got a 2 to 3 hour window to potentially do a paddling outing if Mother Nature lets us. We all get everybody suited up in dry suits and kitted out, and all their gear ready to jump off the ship as soon as they drop anchor.
Okay.
Once the anchor's down, we go out and paddle, get back to the ship, usually in time to, rush off to the restroom and lose that morning coffee. Dry suits, it's Vegas in there. What's in there stays in there, right? So when we get back on the ship, we usually have lunch or something, and then they'll move the ship to a different location in the afternoon. So we get 2 potential, sometimes 3 potential paddles in a day.
Oh, that's not bad.
And in a 4-day trip, while we're down there 4 or 5 days, we might get as many as 8 or 10 trips out if the weather's good. That's unusual.
Yes. Well, and I mean, you're dealing with winter, conditions. You don't know what's going to happen, right?
It's summer there, but you're in the furious 50s and the serious 60s, the screaming 60s. We get some serious wind, but a good captain and a good expedition leader can pull you right up next to big mountain ranges and big islands that you can get out of the wind and check out the wildlife. So
yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that has prevented us from going on one of these trips to the coast. I mean, expense.
It's
right?
Huge money, yeah.
So to be spending that kind of money going down there and not paddling would be not beneficial.
No, and in the 5 years I've been going down there, we've not had that yet. We've always
awesome.
We push the envelope. Sometimes we cheat a little bit. If it's too rough where the ship is parked, we utilize a Zuber. We'll use a Zodiac. to tow kayaks out to a safe spot behind an iceberg or an island where it's a lee shore.
Right.
And we'll launch everybody out of the Zodiac, and then they do a trip there. And it might be a one-way trip where they come back to the Zodiac and we tow the boats back, or they'll paddle downwind to a pickup spot. We do what we call a drop and drag and drop, and use those rubber inflatable boats. So
as long as you're getting out there, right?
We're out there every day. And some days it makes sense to go to shore.
Yeah.
In kayaks right now, because of avian influenza, we're very nervous about taking kayaks to shore because we could spread
right.
that around. So we don't land right now. We have a lot in the past, but if people are wanting to land, we'll put them in a shore party that goes to land, and often we'll join them as part of the naturalist team. But sometimes you just want to go hang out with the penguins.
Well, I would think the biggest reasons people are going to do this, to paddle down there, sort of as a bragging rights thing, right, to their buddy. I went to the Antarctica and paddled. To be able to say they set foot on that seventh continent, continent, and wildlife.
Yeah, and maybe in a somewhat reverse order. The wildlife is a huge thing because people are goofy about penguins, and penguins are really cool.
Yeah,
and it's the time of the year where they've come to shore to make more penguins, so they're all potted up in spots and making their little penguin highways. And different species have different habits and different kinds of stuff that they do. Some are better sledders than other, and they're all just socially interesting creatures. Now, we all have to live by different treaty rules in terms of interaction with the wildlife.
Yes.
The wildlife doesn't know the rules, so if you kind of stay in one spot, the penguins kind of come and hang out with you a little bit. And it's fun. Yeah, there's nothing like it.
We've seen things like that, I think in Australia and New Zealand, where the orcas come up next to you. You're not allowed to actually reach out and touch them.
No.
As much as you want to.
Yeah, it's just not good for the wildlife, right?
Yeah.
So we're always trying to teach people good interaction with wildlife techniques and just good mindset, right? That's part of, we take a 100-question test on how to interact with wildlife and be in Antarctica as part of the treaty organization that's there, and we have to pass that with 90%, or we don't get hired.
Right.
But again, the animals don't know the rules. So one day I was launching a group of kayaks off the marina in our ship, off a big inflatable platform we had, and a minke whale, one of the smaller, the slinky minke, interesting whales, came up. Doesn't have much of a dorsal fin, and slid underneath my feet on its side and just looked up at me about 3 feet away. It took all the self-control I had not to try to kind of go, hey, I know you're there, I see you, so cool, thanks for hanging out. But I still got to talk to her a little bit and just visit for a second. And, there were just no words. You couldn't say anything because your head was just too full of the experience.
Well, and as much as it'd be nice to touch one, just the old look with your eyes, not with your hands sort of thing, right? But just to be there in the presence of some of these animals is
and
cool.
In the water, there's nothing like being in a kayak with a group of porpoising penguins all around you. They just boil in the water, and they're so good in the water. On land, they're really clumsy. They look like Charlie Chaplin trying to move around. But in the water, they're built for that. And they just, you'll see them leaping over the bow of your kayak and bopping around you. It's just, the water literally boils with wildlife. It won't just be penguins, but there'll be different types of fur seals there, and they're not so afraid of you when they're in their water because it's their element. So they'll come up and check you out, bark at you a little bit.
Right.
Sometimes elephant seals too, which are 3 tons of badness that you don't want to be with. And then of course the famous leopard seals. You're on their menu, so they have big teeth.
Yeah.
They're not that interested in us, but they're still cool to check out. And we get Weddell seals and crab eaters down there too, and you sort of learn to make the differences and their different smiles that they have and stuff when they're in the water. Get to know their habits, and it's just part of what we do as naturalists on the water.
Right. So when you do actually manage to go onto land, there's those, you don't go any closer than
15 feet with penguins.
Okay.
Could be as much as 50 meters with some of the big bull elephant seals, so what they call beach master, because he could roll over you, flatten you, kill you, and you wouldn't even know it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Now, okay, so when you're on the water with new people that have never been there before, and their first orca comes up, how much does the excitement override the fear, or does the fear override the excitement?
So far, we were primarily using tandems down there, Sean, so they're pretty stable.
Okay.
So far, I would say that it's usually the excitement that wins out. They usually don't sign up for an experience like this if they're that afraid of water.
Right.
Now, they've all gone through some paddling background before they get down there. We pre-vet them. Everybody's in a dry suit. Everybody's in booties. Everybody's kitted up in pogies on their paddle, little neoprene garages for their paws. And so usually the big concern is just getting that photo. You know, they're in maybe the front seat of the tandem and bossing the person in the background to get them in position. So, yeah, it's usually not so much fear. They're usually just dumbstruck with awe.
So you got to be thinking, okay, I know there's a chance, I hope we see one, but then when it actually happens...
Yeah, it's more common for us not to see whales. Different dolphin species.
Okay.
Lots of seals, and penguins are really the big thing that
the big draw.
Peninsula. Whales we'll see more in South Georgia. Okay. We're doing like a Shackleton kind of route, which we often do, and we'll see more whales up that way. Often see more whales from the ship because you need to be a little higher off the water to see that puff of respiratory moisture, and you get to the point where you see, oh, that one's a bifurcated exhale. That's a fin whale. That's the second biggest whale on the planet. And, you know, smell that? That's a krill eater. You know?
So you get to know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So your company, you do different, we were chatting earlier there, you do different tours throughout, like, during, and you end up sort of taking the same people.
So often, we're a weird company in that we're based in the Great Lakes. We run a kayaking school where we run kayak boot camp types of programs where we take people up for the weekend and feed them and kind of cultivate their paddling skills with them. And then instead of being resource-based, we kind of work for the clients, right? So they may come to us for a weekend workshop and then think, yeah, I want to do a little bit more. I'd like to try kayaking, camping out of my kayak. So we might do a long weekend program where you're camping out of the boat. Maybe to a smaller island, or they want to reach for something a little bit bigger, like a week-long trip to Isle Royale National Park, which is a world-class kayaking destination.
Right.
And then, you know, they feel more comfortable with their skills and camping out with critters and things, and maybe they want to raise the game a little bit and go camp where there's bears. That's when we take them to Alaska.
Right.
And, you know, we get to know our clients really well. We know what they can do. We can vet our groups really well that way and say, hey, we've got this group of kayak enthusiasts now that would like to go with us to Greenland. Would you like to join us? Because we don't do a Greenland trip without a Greenlander with us as a cultural ambassador. So again, kind of a one-off, really specialized trip to Greenland with that same group of clients. So we tend to kind of grow our clientele over the years, and after 42 years in business, it seems to be working.
Well, so I mean that's a good thing, because then when you're heading to Greenland, Alaska, or Antarctica, you got a good handle on what people can do.
And the people on that trip go, oh, John's going to be there, Cheryl's going to be there, this is a group I'll gel with and really like, or this person's going to be there, so yeah, that one's not for me.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, and on the other hand, they also know what they're going to expect from you guys.
Yeah, they know as well.
We know what to expect. We know what we're going to get. Or this is going to be perfect for us, or vice versa.
They'll know that we expect them to help out a little bit. They know we're good with first aid. We're good with repair stuff. We're really good with planning. They know that they're going to eat well, and that you know, judgment will be in place. And they're still going to come away learning well.
Good. Now, when you guys go to, like I say, my big thing is Antarctica. When you're down there, how much education are you giving them about? Now, like when we go paddling in or places like Algonquin Park, they have
naturalists that we can go and chat with, and they'll take you on hikes and stuff, and,
right?
Or that sort of stuff, and point stuff out. Do you guys do the same sort of thing down there?
Yes, we have naturalists on board, but the company I work with down there, I'm a contract guide for an Australian company there called Aurora Expeditions, and we agent for them as well. I do that for another company that works with a smaller ship too, called Southern Sea Ventures. They're the ones who train me. Both of those organizations have professional photographers, professional naturalists, professional oceanographers on board, and geologists. And so there's presentations on board during the crossings of the Drake and stuff to prepare people for what they're going to see. We have photo workshops on board on just how to capture those images, how to process those images later, how to take better video, just to prepare them for that experience. And they need it. They need the coaching. Some people come that are complete polar nerds.
Right.
They've already showed up knowing all the history. They've got more photo gear with them than the ship costs. And they're ready to get. They're high pressure clients because they want to get specific images, but they're fairly well educated en route. Some of them do a lot of studying ahead of time. It just depends on if this is going to be a one-off trip for them, or maybe it's their fourth or fifth trip. Those trips are $1,000 a day, more or less.
Right.
But I'll tell you, in the next couple of years, it's going to drop. And the reason why is during COVID, a lot of companies had already decided to build more ships, and then COVID happened.
Right.
So we had too many seats. So the next 2 years, I'd say, there's more seats than clients, which means that they're going to be discounting spots for really quality programs. So if you've ever been thinking of doing it, now's the time to do it. And if you contact us, I could tell you who's doing the deals and what kind of program might best fit somebody. If they want a bigger ship that's more comfortable, or if they want something that's a little more rough and ready, they want to do an old Russian icebreaker kind of experience, it's a blast. But you're going to barf your guts out the first time.
As long as you have fun. A bucket at a time. But that's pretty cool to be able to. It's one thing to go on the internet and study something and see, but to actually be able to talk to somebody on the ship before you get there, that's basically boots on the ground already.
That's why we get used as an agent quite often, because we're part of the guides. We're part of that crew, and we can talk to somebody about their experience and what they want. And say, this will work for you, or, I would check this one out. Yeah, it's not the company we work with, but we know people who work there, and I think you would like it.
Right, so you can get the fit for the people which is awesome. That's awesome.
That's more important to me than, a commission.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's exactly it. Because then they say, Michael told us, go to these guys, we had a good time. Yeah. I'm going to go back to Michael and say, here's what we're looking at this time. Then maybe next time, you'll come with us, sort of deal. It works out really well.
Yeah, we know quite a large pool of the guides that are working on the ships now. It's kind of like, that's a good one. This is the guy on the ship you need to find. You're going to really enjoy him.
Right. And that's perfect, just getting that networking going too, right? But I didn't think that there was that much tourism down there. I know there was a lot of people like to go.
I know. It's kind of a secret, right?
Yeah.
And the polar scheduler is a thing, right? We all take this IATO test, the International Organization of Antarctic Tour Operators, and IATO has this scheduling program that they use so that we sort of miss each other.
Right.
But there might be 50 ships or more dancing around a pretty small area. You get to what we call downtown Antarctica, and they're hiding from each other around. Sometimes you're waiting in line to go through a passage. And at first that can be a little discouraging, but then they all took the same test about low impact, and it makes leave no trace look like you left a mess on the beach. You can't pee anywhere. You got to be back on the ship. You can't eat off the ship. You can't even have a snack off the ship.
Really?
It's really, really very stringent. So when anybody sets boots on the ground, we're not erasing the boot tracks in the snow. But if we have a permit to camp overnight where people slept, Yep, we're burying that.
Really? Mm-hmm. Wow, so they take that and I guess you have to, right?
Yeah, we do. It helps those people that are hoping to have that really unique, I'm the only one here feeling there. Yeah. Now, I have to say, if you really want that feeling, go to Greenland.
Yeah?
Greenland feels, to me, the reason it's one of our favorite places is it feels like you're the first person to put your boots in a spot where the earth was first born.
Right.
And the culture there is amazing. So, yeah.
Well, see, and that's, and they have wildlife up there too, which people like.
Wildlife that will eat you. Polar bears.
That's what we say about Australia too.
Yeah, that's true. Australia. Or Australians, right? For that matter.
But I mean, if you want that, Antarctic feeling, or you want that cultural immersion, then Greenland is definitely
yeah, and most of the companies that work in the southern hemisphere have a northern hemisphere Arctic season. So,
right.
So if you want to do a ship-based trip in the Arctic, around Norway or Greenland or Svalbard, which is that's downtown Polar Bear Central.
Right.
The same ships will do that. Our company does that as well. We don't work the Arctic season because we're so busy in the Great Lakes in Alaska. Although it's a tough decision because it would be fun to do that. But part of our training is with long-barreled weapons at that point too.
Right. Yeah, and I think if money were no option, which a lot of the people that like me that so where do you want to go this year? Because we're saving up for 3 years for a trip. But if money were no option, it would really be hard choices to pick north or south.
It would.
Like you say, Alaska as well.
Yeah.
We talk about Fat Bear Week and Petmore Provincial Park or National Park and stuff. Yeah. But to be paddling up there as well, how do you choose?
It's tough, and that's for us. It's when I'm planning a year's schedule, and I usually plan 2 years ahead, I kind of have to look at a crystal ball and think, what group of clients do we have that's coming up through the skills ranks? They're going to be ready for this trip. What do we think the economy is going to be like? Because Alaska's price point is here, just because it's what it costs to run a program, say $3,500 for a week-long paddling trip. Greenland's a couple $1,000 more because everything comes from someplace else there. It's so expensive. Antarctica, it's an $8,000 to $10,000 10-day trip down there. But there are people that live to travel, and we run into young Australians and New Zealanders that might work for a couple of years and then they take a year off.
Right.
And maybe that Antarctic trip is their pinnacle part of that year-long walkabout. They saved up to do that. It depends on people's place in their life, too. If they're retired, have time ahead, and they're healthy, go for it. Can't take it with you.
That really, when I was younger, that was the time when, I'm going to take the year off between high school and college and go backpack Europe. But doing things like this in my wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
I'm not going to Antarctica. I'm not going to Alaska. I'm not going to Greenland to paddle. No, we're all going to, hit all the hostels, over in Europe for a month or something like that, and then we'll go to college or university or whatever.
Yeah, the prehistoric gap year.
Yeah.
But for me, when I got out of MSU, because I came out of this community, I was a Parks and Recreation graduate, and I looked at what did retirement mean to people, doing what you want with your time, and I thought, I don't want to wait till I'm all busted up to do that. Yeah. What do I really want to do? Well, I want to be outdoors all the time. So how can I help other people to do that? So I started this business right after school and thought, I'm going to try to work out a way that I can explore our planet in a kayak or canoe this way and try to make a living at it. And it meant I traded off having a family, a traditional sort of lifestyle, owning a home and stuff like that. So I became kind of an adventure nomad. And so I'm kind of reversing now. I got, into a relationship later in life and more settled, but with somebody whose kids have grown, and now we're still adventuring together.
Yeah.
And, kayak is a starship to me. I've seen almost the whole planet with it. coolest thing ever.
We are semi-empty nesters as well. Our kids have done college, university, and all that. So, they're old enough we can leave them alone and go on our own trips and all that sort of stuff. So, it's perfect time for us to go. Do you ever want to go to Iceland?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, we went.
Excellent.
I'm not going to wait till I'm that feeling too. I'm not going to wait till I retire to hit all these spots, because then who knows?
Yeah.
Do it while you're a bit younger, right?
Yeah, bus could hit you tomorrow. And we all lost, we've all lost friends in the last couple of years, and the paddling community's lost quite a few. And I've always been aware of that, but it's just sobering how short life really is. And
yeah.
That's why our tagline on my card is because life is short. It just is. So our job is to try to help people realize dreams, and if that means they need to learn a few things to get there, we try to help them climb up that ladder to get there. No matter what their physical ability, we try to help them to be outdoors.
Awesome. So before we cut this off, Greenland, Alaska, Antarctica. If you had to pick a really good story or something that's happened, experience, from any one of those three places, because I'm sure you've got a lot.
Man. Once in Alaska, I had an orca dive under my kayak, grab a baby seal on the other side of my boat, shake him, spray blood all over me, and toss it to his buddy.
See, I would pay extra for that. Oh, sorry, you got the premium trip with the whale? Yeah, sorry, that's going to be an extra couple grand.
Yeah, I probably have more wildlife stories from Alaska, but yeah.
But you'll keep going back to all those places as long as you can.
Yeah, even the Florida Everglades. I got a ride on the back of a manatee one time in my kayak because the boat raised up in some cloudy water and settled down on a manatee, and he panicked and he went for a high-speed ride, and I was still stuck on his back. Same thing happened with a stingray one time. And then I got into a bar fight with a dolphin down there once. He wasn't in the bar, but I saw this dolphin feeding, and I want to get a good picture of him. So I got a few good strokes in with the kayak, and I brought the viewfinder to my eyes so I could get a picture of him coming up. But I got too much momentum, and I bumped him.
Right.
Ticked him off. He came around behind me. It's really hard to push a kayak straight. This guy was skilled. He got perfectly behind me and just shoved me right into the mangroves, as straight as an arrow.
Wow.
I totally deserve that.
So, tell us about your company, where we can find you, and if people want to contact you and see what you're all about.
So, we're on the web at paddleadventure.com. And Uncommon Adventures is the name of the company. If you just Google Michael Gray and kayaking, you'll find it.
I see you all over social media with their stuff.
But, we're in northwest Lower Michigan, up by Crystal Lake, Sleeping Bear Dunes National Lakeshore area. That's where we host our weekend workshops. We travel all over the state doing training. I, like a couple of other Great Lakes people, sit on the national board for the kayak committee for the American Canoe Association. So we help shape instruction around the country. So we're part of that group, too, that does certification programs, guide programs, and just flat-out instructional skill programs.
Perfect. Michael, thank you very much for coming on and chatting with me today.
Thanks for the time, Sean.
Enjoy the rest of the show.
You too.
I learned an awful lot of things from Michael about Antarctica and stuff like that.
It is fascinating.
There's some fascinating things down there. There's some little tidbits about how touristy it is. And
the logistics of how it works. And
but I'd still take a penguin.
A penguin named Kevin.
Kevin the penguin.
Yeah.
Right? With Perry the platypus.
Yeah.
Oscar the ostrich.
Be fascinating to have a penguin, wouldn't it?
Right?
Running around your backyard, swimming in your pool.
And then that just gives us an excuse to go back every so often to Antarctica so he could visit family.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
See? See?
Got to take Kevin back home to visit family.
Yeah, we're going to go see Kevin's family for the week. Yeah. It's an expensive trip. No, it was really cool to hear a few things about that. But even still, like, just chatting with Michael is just like, oh, maybe we want to go to Iceland or Greenland, and maybe we want to go to Alaska. It would be closer. Yeah, Alaska.
Greenland would be closer and cheaper probably.
And I think Alaska might be even cheaper still.
Oh yeah, guaranteed.
Right?
Yeah.
So we'll see, but it was nice to sit down and actually chat to him after seeing his pictures and stories on social media for so long. So nice to have a little chit chat. When we were setting up, someone came rushing by and she stopped quickly and said, "Hey, do you ever paddle over shipwrecks?" And I said, funnily enough, yes. Well, I need to talk to you then. And I said, well, then come by and see us. She said her name and who she's with and boogied away. And I said, come back and see us and we'll have a chat. Yeah. Stephanie from Thunder Bay National Marine Sanctuary. Now, in the program they gave us for the Quiet Adventures Symposium, it shows her in a wetsuit.
Oh, okay.
So when she came back a little while later to chat, I said, do you paddle over the shipwrecks or do you scuba dive?
Yeah.
And she says, well, I paddle over them, but I do scuba diving on them as well.
Yeah.
I said, because we're a paddling podcast. So if you want to come to talk about scuba diving. And she says, no. We paddle over them.
Yeah.
And she gets into the whole area that they're protecting, and still finding shipwrecks, and because of the shifting sand, sometimes they disappear and new ones appear and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. So it was really interesting to talk with her. So listen to this interview and there's a lot of cool information. I think we're going to go down there at some point. It's not far. We were close to there last summer when we did our 5 days, 5 days paddling or 5. Whatever we did there, blah, 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 blah. Paddling all 5 Great Lakes in a day.
Yeah.
That thing we did.
Yeah.
In under 5 days. Yeah. Don't know where I'm getting 5 days from. It was just straight on the Upper Peninsula there. So we should go down there to that Thunder Bay, not the Thunder Bay on Superior.
No.
Because that's what I was thinking. Thunder Bay.
Yeah, wait a sec.
Thunder Bay. That doesn't. How do you get? That doesn't work right.
Yeah, that threw me off too.
So there is a actual bay, not the city. There's a bay in Alpena is there, Michigan. So listen to Stephanie and I chit-chatting about all the shipwrecks and paddling over top of the shipwrecks. It looks like it will be a fun adventure for us to do.
Absolutely.
Here it is.
Here we go. Sitting with me now is Stephanie. Stephanie came up to me and said, hey, do you paddle over shipwrecks? I'd rather paddle over them than under them. Stephanie, welcome.
Thank you very much. Wonderful to be here.
So who are you? Who are you with? What do you do?
Okay, my name is Stephanie Gandulla. I'm a maritime archaeologist. So I get to study the amazing history underneath the water. And I'm with NOAA's Thunder Bay National Marine Sanctuary. And we are based out of Alpena, Michigan. So just about an hour and a half south of the Straits of Mackinac.
Okay.
And we protect 4,300 square miles of northwestern Lake Huron.
Awesome. Now, how many wrecks do you know?
I do know. In fact, we just recently announced the discovery of the 100th shipwreck within that 4,300 square miles. Really cool thing is we are still looking for shipwrecks. So we estimate there's at least that many more yet to be found.
Wow. Now, we were talking off air where a couple of years back we go to Tobermory with the kayaks and paddle over wrecks and stuff like that. And just being able to look down, see all this stuff. And I mean, surprisingly shallow and clear water. So you can see all this stuff. What's the fascination with paddling over wrecks?
Oh, goodness. What a great question. So, what is the fascination? I have so many answers, so many ways to go. Because, my background is in history and archaeology. And so each of those shipwrecks tells a story, right? And to see that up close and personal, like you, as a paddler, we know what it's like. You're so connected to the water, right? You really can't do much more, a different activity that connects you that much to the water. But then to see that remnant of our rich Great Lakes maritime history right there, just a few feet away from you, and those stories that those shipwrecks hold. So I think it's the compelling history, right?
Right.
And it is a tragic thing, these shipwrecks, of course. But it also tells us a story of the thousands of people that survived on the Great Lakes, living on the Great Lakes, working on the Great Lakes, that built our American economy. So it's an insight into the daily lives of people that we don't often hear about.
Right.
So there's one reason. I mean, it's also just super cool. It's it's not a unique, but a really rare experience to be able to see something that was built 150, 200 years ago.
Yes.
You really get an insight into the technology that put together a 200-foot-long wooden freighter that would carry 1,000 tons of grain, for example.
You don't know how it could carry that much just because you're figuring that kind of weight.
Wow, for sure. Yeah, so it's really interesting if you're into the ship construction technology. You can see timbers and fasteners and sometimes even boilers. So there's another reason.
Well, you know what? And there's nothing like paddling and then being able to look down and seeing something. And as you say, I mean, except in rare cases where they'll sink a boat for an artificial marine reef or something like that. They are, when you think about it, all tragic stories, right?
Well, they are mostly accidental sinkings, but there are a number, especially in the shallower waters, that we'll get to see while paddling, that were deliberate abandonments. In fact, there's a place just off the shores of Alpena that is nicknamed the Boneyard. Okay. And it's where a number of vessels were deliberately abandoned. So it's like kind of like you think of a junkyard for cars. Your car is, it's old and you're going to go get a new one, so why even bother with the old one? You just leave it by the roadside. Of course, we don't really do that. But you would leave it, that's what they did. They had these old ships and they'd strip the machinery, take the expensive stuff off and then just shoot a hole in the hull and abandon it there.
Really?
So some of them are abandonments. In fact, the really cool ones that you can see from a glass-bottom boat in Alpena are abandoned vessels.
Wow, I wouldn't think there would be that many.
There's quite a few. I guess most of them in the sanctuary, those 100 that we talked about, were accidental sinkings. Weather, collisions, fire, groundings, that kind of thing. Right. But there are some that were abandoned.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, what do you do with a broken boat that's no good anymore, right?
Yeah,
it's not like you're just going to hurf it in the track.
That's right. Well, and if you think back even, with dugout canoes and birch bark canoes, the reason we don't find a lot of those in the archaeological record is because those would be recycled, right?
Right.
So you could cut down a dugout canoe. You're not going to use it anymore. You could make other things out of it.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be a really cool find. But
I know in Wisconsin, Madison, Wisconsin, there we talked to. I actually talked to her at Canoecopia last year.
Oh, did you?
This stuff and
so cool! I was so jealous when I saw that she found a dugout canoe. I was like, I want to find one. I know,
right? How do you do that?
I know that was really cool. We've got to have some. I mean, they got to be buried in the muck, though, because I mean they'll just deteriorate. But that's another reason we have that amazing preservation here in Lake Huron, just like over there, is the cold, fresh water.
Yeah.
So that it's like a schooner deep freeze, I mean, it just keeps the wood intact. And that's why even in the shallow waters, which is much more dynamic area than the deep water, right?
Yep.
You got ice movement, wind and waves, sand shifting, but you still have those intact vessels. I mean, nearly intact. You can look down and see that it's a hull. Sometimes you can look and see an actual propeller.
Okay. Now, is there a timeline that this area has?
Great question. So we, at our exhibit, so the headquarters for the National Marine Sanctuary in Alpena, we have an awesome 10,000 square foot free museum that talks all about the shipwreck century. So you asked about a timeline. We start the shipwreck century in 1825.
Okay.
Do you know why we choose 1825?
No.
Okay. You didn't know there'd be trivia, did you?
I didn't know there would be a test in this program.
That's just the first question, too. You wait. The opening of the Erie Canal. And so that opened up the Great Lakes to all the industry and growth and immigration happening on the East Coast. So lots of shipping then.
Right.
And so the Erie Canal, 1825, begins what we call the shipwreck century. And then the next 100-plus years saw almost every type of vessel in the Great Lakes, everything from old wooden schooners to huge steel freighters, similar to what we see working the Great Lakes today.
Right.
So, about 100 years is when you saw a lot of changes in ship construction design, and almost every type of vessel built on the Great Lakes is represented in the collection on the bottom of the sanctuary. So that's pretty cool. We've got everything, like I said, the steamers, the sailing vessels. In 2017, we discovered a semi-whaleback, which is, there was only 3 like it built in all the Great Lakes. Okay. And we discovered the Choctaw in over 300 feet of water. You're not going to paddle to see that one.
I might go paddle and just look down, know it's there.
You know it's there, that's right.
You know what, that makes sense, because, until everything started coming up through, it's not like there's going to be a ton of ships on the Great Lakes, right?
That's right. With the canal opening, it became one of the world's busiest waterways.
Yeah.
Still is today. It's just that, one of those big freighters that we see working the lakes can haul what 200 schooners did back during the shipwreck century.
Yeah. Is there a big difference between the wooden ships and the metal ships?
In like their preservation or
in content? How many are down there?
Oh, gotcha. Oh,
I didn't know there would be hard questions.
You're right, you got me back. Well, I want to count that up now. How many wooden compared to? I think there might be more wooden, especially the shallower ones.
Yeah, that's what I would think.
Now that I'm thinking through this, I'm thinking about the ones I've visited and paddled to and snorkeled to. One of my favorites is the wooden schooner called the Portland. Ran aground in a storm, 1877. That's wooden, and it was carrying salt. No lives lost on that wreck. Another shallow one, the Albany, one of my favorites, in about 8 feet of water, and it's an old paddle wheeler and massive. We're super old, like built in the 1840s. Don't quote me on that. Sank in 1854 in another storm, and it's the timbers looking down at this wreck, always crystal clear at the Albany, and the timbers are massive. They're like 2-foot square timbers, just massive. So I'm thinking, and I think we mainly have wooden vessels, although some of our deeper, really cool scuba diving shipwreck sites are like a 200-foot long steel freighter. One of my favorite sites, the Grecian, in about 100 feet of water.
That's not too bad. Now, we talk about paddling over these wrecks and stuff, which is pretty cool, and depending on the wreck would probably be pretty eerie looking down, right?
Yeah.
But people can also, if they do it, they can snorkel these as well and scuba dive. I know, because I know your picture here in the book, so it shows you all in scuba gear, and I'm thinking,
what's she talking about?
You're talking about paddling. You're all in scuba gear here. So I don't see anybody falling out of a canoe in scuba gear.
That's right. Oh, you can.
Do people do it?
People do it. You could get a certain type of kayak, like a pretty sturdy one, throw your scuba gear in there. Paddling and scuba diving go hand in hand. Heck yeah.
Really?
I've seen it happen. I have not done it. It seems kind of labor intensive. I'd rather be on a dive boat or else go kayaking.
Yeah. But no, that's pretty cool. Like I say, is when you're paddling up on some of these things and you know the boat's there, and you look down, and then all of a sudden, boom, there it is, right? Masted ships.
Yes.
Is there any that are like all of a sudden the mast is there?
Well, all of a sudden on the shallow ones, not so much.
Right.
So the deeper ones, honestly, some of the deep schooners have their mast still standing, wooden mast standing upright 90 feet. In the water column. But you get those shallow ones, that kind of can be a navigation hazard.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. Like, are they still there? The top's missing?
Right. In one of the shipwrecks that the Glass Bottom Boat visits, and it's a great shallow dive site, you could snorkel to this one, too. It's about 35 feet deep, just in the middle of Thunder Bay, the bay proper.
Right.
At the Oscar T. Flint. And it's right in the shipping lane. So when it sank, they had to dynamite part of it to make it not a navigational hazard.
Oh.
Yeah. But then thinking of another one, the Shamrock in that boneyard I was telling you about, that's about 17 feet deep. And its propeller is sticking up, 8 feet. So there is some relief on these shallow wrecks.
Okay. So is there any that are still sort of sticking up out of the water?
Oh, great question. One of my favorites is the Joseph S. Fay off of 40 Mile Point. and it is not sticking out of the water, but part of it's on the beach. Okay. And so if you haven't visited 40 Mile Point Lighthouse, it's just north of Rogers City, northeast Michigan, so about 45 minutes north of Alpena. And it's a perfect maritime place to visit because there's a lighthouse, there's a wheelhouse of an old freighter, there's a big lifeboat there, and then there's a shipwreck on the beach. And then you go out in the water, you can paddle out to the buoy, then I'll tell you about buoys here in a minute, and tie up and then jump in and snorkel the rest of the shipwreck in about 17 feet of water.
That's cool.
That's an adventure right there.
Right? I mean, that's your day.
That's right. Yeah. And then have a picnic.
Weekend.
There's a lovely little picnic grounds there and a beach. It's awesome.
Buoys.
So one of our most important resource protection efforts is our mooring buoy program. And so we maintain mooring buoys on 52 of the shipwreck sites. And the sites ranging from those super shallow ones to super deep ones. And these buoys are awesome because they protect the shipwreck site because you don't have to drop anchor, and potentially, if you want to visit the site, you don't have to drop anchor if you're on a dive boat or a fishing boat or sailboat or whatever, even a paddling boat, and potentially damage this historic shipwreck. Right. But it's also a way easier way to find a shipwreck site. You've got a buoy floating on the water. You see it from shore, you hop in with your kayak or your paddleboard, paddle right up to it, and then there's tag lines on them. And you can just tie up to the line, tie your craft up to that line on the buoy, and then jump in if you want, or just hang out for a bit, have your lunch, and then head in.
Is there any info on the buoy or anything about which?
It's the name. The name of the shipwreck is on there.
Okay.
Yeah, and they're blue and white. They stand out. And in fact, we have a great mooring buoy map on our website, thunderbay.noaa.gov.
Okay.
And you can go see where all the buoys are, see which ones are in. They're seasonal, of course, so we put them in early May, take them out in early October, and it's a great way to access these shipwreck sites.
Right. That's perfect. I was just going to... historic one. Is there any historic ones that are really significant out of all the ships?
Okay, that's another good question. So...
Like, yes. I mean, if you're tootling around, all of a sudden found the Queen Mary or something like that on the ocean.
Right.
That's pretty significant.
Or like the Edmund Fitzgerald or something like that.
Yeah.
So, as a historian, I really would have to say they're all historically significant. There's no super duper famous ones like Titanic or, that kind of thing, or the Queen Mary. What's cool about them is they're representative, right? If you want to really understand what a canal schooner is like, we got a whole bunch of those.
Right.
And so I'm racking my brain right now trying to think of like super famous ones. That Choctaw, that semi-whaleback that we discovered in 2017, was famous in shipwreck history circles for sure, because people had been looking for it. Only one of 3 built, so that's pretty significant. You may have stumped me on a real significant. I know there's...
Is there any that have been people who are looking for, and then finally someday, wow.
Yes. Like, I actually just did a lecture on our 5 most recent discoveries, and we announced the 5th in March of last year, so just about almost exactly a year ago, and it was the Ironton, and it was a schooner that people had been looking for decades. We discovered the vessel it collided with in 2017. Okay. And so when we discovered the Ohio, the one it collided with, people were like, well, where's the Ironton? Because we looked around. You'd think they'd be pretty close. They weren't so close. And then the next time we were able to go out and continue looking and continue mapping, we eventually did find the Ironton. So that one was pretty well received news when we discovered that shipwreck. Lots of people were looking for that one.
Well, and that's it. If there's one people are looking for, and because those are, I would imagine, going to be the ones that are a bit deeper.
Oh, for sure.
Right.
Yeah, but there are still some shallow ones to find, I'm sure. I mean, like we talked about earlier, the dynamic nature of shallow Great Lakes, right? Things are changing all the time. With the sand, that's exactly right. Yeah.
What's the technology nowadays to find?
To look for shipwrecks, we use remote sensing technology, those deeper wrecks. So we send out vessels, whether they're autonomous vessels or like little small operated from shore boats, maybe 10 feet long, or one of our big research vessels, 50 foot long, will have multi-beam sonar mounted to the hull. Okay. And that sends out sound waves And then how those sound waves come back to the multi-beam sonar tells you what the lake bottom looks like. So it tells you the relief, and it tells you the shapes on the bottom, whether it's a big chunk of rocks or whether it's a shipwreck. Okay. So that's how we get an idea of what the lake floor looks like, and it's pretty interesting that only about 15% of the Great Lakes have been mapped to high resolution, to high detail. So they've been mapped, of course, with low resolution enough to navigate and to understand it basically, but to that high resolution within a couple meters where, is real important for managing these areas, for biologists to understand fish habitat, for geologists to understand the topography, the bathymetry of the lake bottom. We have a lot of work to do to go out with those remote sensing technologies and understand the lake bottom.
Right.
So we've actually, all of our mapping efforts contribute to an initiative called Lakebed 2030, which is a really cool grassroots initiative where universities and public agencies and private businesses and individuals, that spend a lot of time on the water are out there mapping and then contributing that data to this Lakebed 2030 initiative. So we have, hopefully, the goal is to have the Great Lakes mapped to high resolution by 2030.
That'd be cool.
Which is creeping up on us, isn't it?
Right? Yeah. Closer and closer. Only 6 years away now. Yeah. No, that's pretty cool. Now, the best place, if you're saying, to go out, if you wanted to paddle and see wrecks, out of Alpena?
Absolutely. Well, there's out of Northeast Michigan. I would say start your sanctuary shipwreck paddling adventure in Alpena at the Sanctuaries Visitor Center, the Great Lakes Maritime Heritage Center. Big blue NOAA building right on the Thunder Bay River, open year-round, free admittance, and it's 10,000 square feet of maritime exhibits. Start there, and you can learn the history about the shipwrecks, talk to the historians there, go shopping in the gift store. Supports the Friends of the Sanctuary, which we do a lot of education programs, so that's super cool.
Right.
And that's where you're going to learn where to put in. You can put in just down the street from there, or you can go to downtown Alpena, just off the break wall. But then traveling north, there's Presqu'île and Rockport State Park are some great places to put in. And then south of Alpena, down in the Harrisville area, and Black River, there's some shallow shipwrecks. So there's lots and
There's lots to do.
Lots of shipwrecks to see.
Now, I presume you guys would sell a map that people can know where to go?
Absolutely, and we don't sell it because, we're...
Or just give it away?
We're giving away because, we're, like I said, we're like National Park, but underwater, so we're part of a national system. So federal government they're not selling stuff, we're giving it, right? We're a public service.
Away, yeah.
Public service here for the people. And, just to mention, there are 15 national marine sanctuaries across the whole U.S. And we were the very first one in freshwater. And so pretty cool, designated in the year 2000 because of all these shipwrecks we've been talking about. But the National Marine Sanctuary System protects over 620,000 square miles of America's special places underwater.
Wow.
So it's a vast system that we're a part of. But yes, to answer your question, you can get lots of free information at thunderbay.noaa, so NOAA.gov, and that's where we have our mooring buoy map. We have a paddle snorkel guide, which lists our star shallow shipwrecks to visit and how to find them, where to put in, a little bit of history about them. But yeah, that website, thunderbay.noaa.gov, is the place to go.
Awesome. One may not be the last question, but for now, I know when we go out, we're doing fishing and stuff like that, there's plenty of times that we'll catch a piece of wood that has zebra mussels.
Uh-huh.
Are they having an effect on the wrecks?
Great question. So, yes, the zebra quagga mussels are everywhere, right? And they do habitate the wrecks. They grab onto them. And they don't eat the wrecks, though. So that's a good thing.
Right.
But they do weigh them down. And they obliterate details. So that's the effect they would have on it. Obviously, we all know they have an effect on the entire ecosystem.
Yeah.
But they don't eat the wrecks, but they can weigh them down and maybe make them fall apart a little sooner than they would without the mussels. And then, archaeologists, when we're looking to identify a shipwreck or understand a site, there's those details that those mussels are obliterating that we can't really see.
Right.
So,
You do the best you can.
That's right.
Right. Is there anything, any ships that you think you may be on track of that might be hopefully found in the next while?
That we're looking for?
Yeah.
So, we have a really cool map. When you come visit out the visitor center, there's a huge map that has all the shipwrecks that we found and then all the projected ones we think are out there. And so we're going to go out mapping every season until we have the whole 4,300 square miles map. So I evaded that question because I don't have a specific one we're looking for. The goal really is just to map the whole lake bottom.
Just keep finding them.
Keep mapping, keep finding them.
Which begs the question, if I'm out there paddling, I look down, I go, there's no buoy around here, this ain't on a map. And I happen to see something down there. Who do I contact?
You contact the state of Michigan. And then, in fact, the Marine Sanctuary is co-managed by NOAA and the state of Michigan.
Okay.
So contact the state and report it, and that's really important to do. So that's a great question you ask, because we talked about those. They could move. The shipwrecks could move. It could be a newly uncovered site that the state doesn't have in the database. So there's a great website that the state has. I don't have it off the top of my head, but if you Google State of Michigan shipwreck reporting, you'll get to it. Okay. And there's a form and everything right there, so it can be added to the database.
Awesome. One more time, where do we find you guys on the web?
thunderbay.noaa.gov.
Perfect. Stephanie, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Hopefully I can get down there and do some paddling over the wrecks.
Yes, let me know.
Cool.
Yes, it's super cool. Let me know when you come.
Can do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Does that not sound like fun?
It does. And we both done this, like when we went to Tobermory, and although we didn't scuba dive time, but I have scuba dove in Tobermory. But yeah, paddling the cut. Oh, and that's when I was paddling John Boblock's Skin on Frame. Yeah, in Tobermory. It's amazing to see wrecks like that. Like, I haven't seen it in her area, but I know what Tobermory is like.
So they have the glass boat. We could go in the glass boat. Yeah. We could also go paddling. We could go see the Marine Sanctuary, the building and everything that they have to do some of the behind the scenes sort of stuff in that. And then I have no problem sitting on a dive boat if you want to bring your gear and go down and dive one of the wrecks. Yeah. I think that's a weekend trip.
Oh, absolutely.
We should look into doing.
Bring the family along.
No.
You wouldn't bring Tracy?
Maybe. Yeah, no, it sounds like something pretty cool to do.
Yes, it is. Yeah,
and it's just something about paddling over wrecks and seeing them like appear 100%. Out of the water and that sort of thing, right? Like I said, that was just cool when we were in Tobermory. Thank you to Michael and Stephanie for joining me on that for those interviews, so we can put this episode together. From everything I heard, Canoecopia was a success.
Word is
another one. Word is we didn't go. Yeah, but, maybe next year. I'm sort of thinking it's going to be an every 2-year thing.
Yeah,
but. I'm serious. I would have to take like the Thursday off to go down and set up, and then there Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
I would like to go
Monday.
And if to go to Canoecopia, no, I haven't. So I want to go, and plus it makes it practical if we do interviews and stuff.
Right?
See? It's a business trip. We could write it off on taxes.
We could write it off. How many people would bring us beer over 3 days?
Ooh.
What's our limit?
We'd have to claim it at the border.
Oh, we'd have to have a party at our room.
There's too many beers
just to get rid of half
have
of
to
it.
Drink some of them.
We're gonna have to drink some of them. Oh man. No, let me put it this way. I went to the Quiet Adventures Symposium twice before you came.
Yes,
for your first time.
Yeah,
I've been to Canoecopia twice.
I've never been.
Before you came for the first time.
Yep.
So that means next year.
Yep. Next year's the year.
Next year's going to be your first year. Drive on down, have some fun, stop at White Castle on the way.
How many hour drive was it for you when you went?
Like 12.
That's not too bad.
Not at all.
Huh.
It's bad if there's bad weather.
Yes. Yeah.
But other than that, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm thinking, next year.
Let's do
it. Who else is going to Canoecopia next year?
Yeah.
Start the list.
Road trip.
This has been episode 2 of 3 of the 2024.
421.
This is episode 421. This has been the second of 3 episodes for Quiet Adventures Symposium 2024. Next week will be our third and last episode, and it's going to be a longer one, but whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah, we'll deal with
it. It is what it is. Do you got anything else to add?
I do not.
Oh, man.
Well, don't ask. I never do.
Some days you do. If you want to find out more about us, you can find us at paddlingadventuresradio.com. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can download or stream our episodes on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, iHeartRadio, Player FM, and all your favorite podcast downloading sites. Just Google us and we're there.
Google us
and we'll be there. Or you can just go to the episode page at paddlingadventuresradio.com and you can download or stream all our episodes there. 421 of them now. And if you enjoy the podcast, please share it with friends, family, and fellow paddlers. I want to thank everybody for listening this week. I'm Sean Rowley.
And I'm Derek Specht. We'll see you next time.